women who come to the tomb in the cold frost of the morning. I could go on and on, of course, but do you see where this is going? Jesus does not just belong to his parents. He belongs to all of those other characters in the story. From the ones we might call the bad guys, to the Marys and Josephs and the few who remain faithful. All those who were lonely and despised, whom Jesus loved. Jesus doesn't belong to his mom and dad. He belongs to everyone in the story, everyone in his Father's house, or if I could stretch the image a bit, everyone in his Father's world. And he belongs in this sense. He is for them all. Jesus is there for the good and for the life of the world. A few moments ago, I suggested that Jesus, a 12-year-old kid on the other side of the world 2,000 or so years ago, is a long way from the University of Saskatchewan and professors and students and all those other things that we associate with university life now. But that's just the point. He seems a long way away, but here he is. Jesus is present right here now, with everyone in the story and for everyone in the story, as far back as the story stretches, whether you think that's 6,000 years ago or unfathomable millions of years. And he's there for everyone in the story as far into the future as the story stretches, whether you think the end is coming soon or the whole works will be around for another unfathomable millions of years. From where we sit here in this Lutheran church on this Sunday morning in this corner of the world, we hear Jesus speak, and what he says is something like this: I don't belong to you. I need to be in my Father's house. I need to be in my Father's world. And we are reminded, like we've always needed to be reminded, that Jesus is not just here for us, but he is here for the whole world. For the world in Wildwood and Lakeview, but also for the world in Riversdale and St. George. For the world on this side of the church walls, and especially for the world on that side of the church walls. For the world on this or that side of the planet, off campus or on campus. Jesus is out there in the world and for the world. And we, the body of Christ, are for the world. Because Christ, the baby, the 12-year-old giving his parents a fright, the criminal on the cross, the one missing from the empty tomb, is for a world that is so deeply beloved by God. Lutheran campus ministry is simply another way that we in the church proclaim Christ for the world and live our lives as Christ for the world. In one way, it's a specialized ministry like native ministry or downtown ministry or prison or hospital or you name it ministry. But it's really just what we all do, because Christ is for the world, giving his life for the world, dying for the world, rising up for the world. And as Christ's life is given for the life of the world, so we too, the body of Christ, live and give our life for the world. And as you know, that world is a very everyday place. The world for which Christ lives, the world in which Christ rises, is an everyday world where people go to work and study, where they play and they succeed and they fail and they celebrate good things and they struggle and wonder and worry about the difficult things. And it's all ordinary things. That's what happens in this reading from John that we're reading this morning. The disciples all return to the everyday. They've heard this crazy news that Christ is risen, and they're just starting to make sense of it, and then Peter says, I'm going fishing. What that means is, I'm going back to work. It's pretty ordinary, a pretty everyday life. And Peter goes back to his ordinary life and has an awful day and a failure of a night at work. Maybe that happens to him all the time. Maybe it only happens every now and then. In any case, it's ordinary life that these people, these friends of the risen Christ, get back to. But that's where the risen Christ belongs. Even in his resurrected life, he belongs in the world, in this ordinary place, with ordinary people doing their everyday thing. On that morning on the beach, a few days after Christ's resurrection, Jesus' followers and friends do what they do, and he meets them with the oddest and greatest little sentence he ever utters. Come and have breakfast. On the morning of this day of Christ's resurrection, Christ does the same thing. A group of people gather on this beach here, people worn out from the everyday, tired from the work and the frustration, or maybe elated, and always just caught up in the everydayness of life. We gather on this beach on the Kircher, just like a smaller group will gather in a few days on the beach at the corner of College and Wiggins. And Jesus walks into these places and all those places where we live our everyday lives, because he is for the everyday world. And he calls to us and says, come and have breakfast. And we are given what we could never get for ourselves. Bread and fish, the things we really need. Forgiveness and peace, refreshment, life again. And we are sent on into an everyday world with those same gifts to share. Food, drink, forgiveness, peace, all of it rooted in this good news. Good news that Christ is risen, that darkness and fear are pushed aside forever by light and life given for all. In some ways it is complicated. It's complicated, you can tell it is because people have been writing thick books about it for 2,000 years. It's university student, hard, think a lot, wrap your brain around a weird idea in a rich and diverse world complicated. But before any complication sets in its simplest form, it's more than enough. The good news that we share here in this neighborhood, on campus, close by and far away, is always and simply this. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Amen. And this risen Christ is for the world, for this very world. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Paul, for your powerful words to encourage us in our walk of faith, of grace, and that God's love is for the world. Let us rise and join together in singing, How Deep the Father's Love for Us.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should